a mini cousin of WPF or Windows platform that we released for UI. And the same Silverlight that you know that on desktop will work. There are some things that are missing in that, but those are things that we thought that doesn't make sense for mobile. And we added some things on top of Silverlight to make it much more adaptable for the phone. And there are common base class libraries like collections, threading, and whatnot available for you. So the version of Silverlight that's available on the phone is Silverlight 3 plus, a little bit above 3. So that's why it's, if you know SL3, this is what you have. The second thing that's available for you as a developer is the XNA framework. XNA has a game loop. Every tick, if you will, there is an update method that gets called on your app, and it's up to you to draw whatever you want in that tick. Whereas in the Silverlight, the tick happens behind the scene for you, and Silverlight rendering engine does the present on the screen. But as a developer, when you throw in a button and click a button, you get an event back, and you write the code what you want to do with that event. Whereas on this XNA side, there is no such event that gets fired. You need to poll, okay, did the user touch here, or is the user clicking on something, that sort of thing, every tick that gets happened. So this is an event-based model on Silverlight, and XNA has a game loop that gets called. And the other thing also that we have that XNA provides is this media library where you can play with audio. So when you fire a missile or something, it does that noise. You know, it could be a polyphonic sound, or you can vary the pitch of these things. So all those libraries, the non-UI libraries that are available in XNA, you can use it in Silverlight. And the base classes that are available in Silverlight, you can use here as well. The next one is the phone UI and the app model that are available to you. We call it the app model because the Silverlight, even though it is a Zap that gets packaged at the end, Alok went a little bit about that earlier. We added a few manifests which will help us in identifying what your app is and what sort of capabilities are you requesting so that we can triage them during our certification process. And also, Silverlight gives you a lot of controls like button checkboxes and labels and radio buttons and whatnot, right? So they have a specific look and feel that fits the desktop look and feel. But on the phone, we have this Windows Phone 7 theme, so the look and feel of these controls are customized for the phone. And also we made them touch aware. Like if you are on the desktop, you're using a mouse and you have a precise click. When you click on something, you have almost like a pixel where you click on it. But if you expect your user to click on a particular pixel using this big fat thumb that I have, it is impossible. So we made them touch aware, and we made them gesture aware as well. The built-in controls that are shipping within Windows Phone 7 are all customized for the phone, even though the API could look the same. But when you flick on a list box, the flick is a gesture, and we coded that ourselves. And the flick animation that comes with the physics engine, we coded that for you. So as far as the API is concerned, you get a list box, you add in a bunch of items to the list box. That's all you have to do. Very similar to what you do on the desktop side. So all these things are available for free. When I say for free, you're not writing any code for that, right? So the last thing is the secret sauce, if you will. What makes it a phone platform, right? Yeah, we talk about buttons, we talk about list boxes, but really a phone is not about buttons and list boxes. It's about the device capabilities of the phone, meaning the touch points that you have, where we added a manipulation engine behind the scene for you. And the manipulation events are passed to each control, right? That is something new for us. And the other things like the device capabilities are these things where you have a accelerometer. Accelerometer is the one where you have the phone here, flip it, then your app will just get it from portrait to landscape mode. Or you could build a car racing game where you move the phone and you get the XY coordinates changed, and then you can orient your game or whatever that way. So all these things like camera, for example, or launching a photo picker, all these things are all device-specific things that we want you to be programming against. So bunch of these things, if you see, all of these together are basically a framework. It's not a single thing, but if you look at it as a collection, these are all available to you. And the other thing also we really thought about really hard is how do we bring people up to speed about building applications for Windows Phone 7. So for that, if you are a Silverlight developer, you're already like 90% there. The things that you may not know are these parts, right? And these are pretty similar, like buttons and list box and stuff like that. This is what you have to know. And if you are an XNA game developer, like you know Direct3D and stuff like that, you already know that, and this is what you have to know. So most of the things we want to know, and we want to make sure that all of you get productive very quickly, right? And the last thing that I want to touch about is the cloud service integration. Everybody is Web 2.0, all these buzzwords. I don't like buzzwords that much, but we have cloud services. And we build specific phone-specific cloud services available for you. The push notification service is a very good example of that. It makes sense only for phone. And location service. Location service is available for you on the laptop, but the maximum resolution you may expect back from that is probably I'm in Bangalore, I'm in Hyderabad, I'm in Delhi, I'm in Los Angeles, whatever, to get a weather back. You don't need an accurate GPS. But on a phone, you could get accurate GPS lock, but it's going to consume more power, right? Or you may want to do cell tower triangulation maximum. Maybe that's good enough for you. Maybe a few 100 meters is good enough for you, right? Where is the closest gas station for that sort of thing? If you want turn-by-turn directions, you want GPS. All these things are available through location. When people say location, a lot of people get confused with GPS or whatever. So we built a service which Microsoft is going to run, which you can use for building your apps. So a ton of these services are available. We're not going to go into that, but I want to give you a breadth of what is available. So next thing is, I'm a program manager in Microsoft. I own the mobile tooling part of it. All the tools that you're going to see, I own, meaning if there is anything wrong with it, come back and shoot me, right? So we took a step back, just like the platform. Whatever we were doing before with Windows Phone 6.5 or 6.x, we took a hard look at what we are doing and how the phone should look like on the phone. Similarly, we took a hard look at what are we providing for you, the developer, and what kind of pain we put you through. And it is phenomenal. Really, you went through a lot. So you don't have to go through that anymore. There is a single download that you have to go through. Click that, go to Windows Phone, that developer.windowsphone.com, download it. In one shot, you get all the tools. There is the Visual Studio 2010 Express for Windows Phone. I need to remember the full name. Internally, we have code names that makes it easier. But this is the Express edition. A lot of people gave us feedback saying, well, do you want me to really invest $1,000 before I get the privilege of developing apps? We said no. So this thing is available for free. If you are a customer who already have Pro, Premium, or Ultimate of Visual Studio 2010, then the same download will get you an add-on for that Visual Studio. Then you can start building apps. And we include a high-fidelity emulator. In the past, we had an ARM-based emulator where it emulated all the phone, which is really ARM code running on it. So when we looked at the hardware specs that Alok talked about, like we need a GPU, we need a faster CPU computation, we need all the smooth animations, it is not possible for us to emulate everything in ARM on desktop and meet the speed requirements, right? So we built a new emulator from ground up that takes advantage of your PC hardware. If your PC supports, like mine is a 2-year-old IBM ThinkPad T61P. So this one is 2-year-old. It has a Core 2 Duo chip on it. So we use hardware virtualization. So if you turn it on, then your emulator can use hardware virtualization to run the actual Windows Phone 7 OS inside the emulator. And it is much faster, right? We support DirectX if your PC has a GPU or graphics processor on it. If you have a graphics card, really good NVIDIA or ATI cards or whatever you have that supports DX10 or above, then we support that. Now, all these things I'm talking because when we go back down and code on it, then you can see the performance. People who have used our past emulator and this one, there's no comparison. And the second thing I want to say is this is not a simulator, unlike some of our competition. When we say emulator, the whole OS is running. So today we have some peripherals implemented like the touch. You can flick on the screen, then you would really interact with the phone, right? And we are going to add all the peripherals down the line as we go through. And when you build your app, you're building this managed code that is packaged in a Zap. And the same Zap gets run on the emulator or on the device, right? So you're really building one package that runs both places. So today we're going to go through a few areas. We are not going to go through Silverlight, and this is not a Silverlight training or teaching course or anything like that. I'm assuming that you know Silverlight. And if you don't know Silverlight, we can easily follow along. I'm not going to go in depth into Silverlight, how to build Silverlight. This is not about that. This is about phone, right? So we'll go through a few of the things that we thought that you need to know, right? Silverlight you can learn, or if you already know, great. So the first thing we want to go over is the navigation framework. So the phone, if you think about for a moment, forget about the phone. Just think that you have a web page. How will you build your web application? You have a bunch of pages that are strung together as an application, and you navigate between pages. And you have a session that hangs on top that controls the whole thing. But this is running on the server. Assume that whole thing is running inside your phone. So your app is really a non-visual component of it. And there is one frame that holds all these pages, right? And you as a developer, when you create an application, you get this application object, the frame, and you get one page created for you. And you add a bunch of pages however you want. This is very similar. If I throw away all these things and replace that with window, then this is same thing, right? In desktop, you have a bunch of windows, and when you click on a button, you open a dialog box, something like that. So this is very similar to web concept, so why don't we start writing code, right? So I'm going to be sitting down for the rest of the talk and go through this. So I'm going to launch the Express edition of the Visual Studio. So let's create a new project. So we want to call this a navigation application. We have a bunch of templates. I'm going to use a simple template. Because of the resolution, we don't see all the panes, but we'll try to manage this. So here we have a main page that is created, and an application icon and a background image that we put it on the home screen of the phone. So these are all pre-built. There is nothing fancy about it. Your app has a title, and you have a page title for that. Let's add one more page to this. So we'll add a portrait page, just like that, and call it page 1. So that we know that we are on page 1, I'm going to put a text block, and just like so. Maybe I think we need to increase the font size a little bit so that we can see. And maybe the foreground color of this so that we can see that. Okay, nothing fancy. We just have one text block like that so that we'll know that we are on the second page. And how would you go from page to page in a web application? Anybody? Come on, you're all developers. Hyperlink, yeah? So we have a hyperlink button. So we'll just throw in a hyperlink there. And I guess we need to increase the font size of this too. Maybe even more. Right? And how would you go from page to page? I know I put a hyperlink. You need to, in a web page, you put a href equals something, right? That href is the navigation part of it, where you want to go. So here we have a navigate URI. All I'm doing is like what is the name of this? Page1.xaml. That's it, right? And the title of this thing says some go to page 1. That's it, right? I'm going to go and say, just run this thing. Now it's going to launch it in my emulator that's already running here. So here is our simple application. And when I click on go to page 1, it just went to page 1. There's no animation behind the scene. We could hook up animation for that and then have a smooth transition that the page could slide in or the page could come in a sweeping way, just like your PowerPoint slides. The other interesting thing is, now that you went from page 1 to page 2 or main page to page 1, you want to go back, right? I didn't write any code for that. So as a built-in out of the box, it is integrated with your back button, the hardware back button. On the real phone, you have this button back. When you click that, it will go back to the previous page. Similarly, as a programmer, when you click on it, it went back, right? So you click on this go to page, you went back to second page, and you went back. So I didn't write any code, but we just created a couple of pages and strung them together, right? So you can imagine the first page having a bunch of search results. So when I click on the first search result, you go to the second page where you show the details of that thing. And you may want to actually pass a parameter so that you know that in the second page, hey, here is the context of my customer object or the product ID or whatever you want, right? And go that way. So just like in a web page, instead of saying page1.xaml, you would just use the query string, question mark, param equals hi gids, right? So I'm passing a parameter through the ahref or the navigate URI in this case, and I want to take this and set it as a parameter for the text block that we have here. So we need to read that. So how do we read a parameter? Anybody can help me? On what? Page load, yes, but how would you read it? What do you call that in a web? Parameters, query string. So we just need to get the query string, right? So in a page load event, I'm going to get the query string. So there is something called a navigation context that gets passed to you, right? Navigation context dot query string dot try get value. I want to see if I have a value, a parameter called param available, and I'm going to out a string here, right? It is going to return me something if it's available. Oops. So I need to define a string param for that. And if this guy returns something, then I want to set the value of the text box with the parameter whatever I got back, right? So text block 1 dot text equals param. So here all we are doing is try to read the value, whatever is passed to us, and in my page load event, I'm just putting that thing, right? Let's just run that. Click on go to page. Instead of the text block 1 that we had, it's very easy to read the parameters back and do it that way. I could also put a button and use code to navigate from page 1 to page 2. And there is a thing called navigation service that's available for us to do that. But I think you've got a good idea about what this page navigation is about. The hardware button is integrated into your app, free of cost for you. You don't have to write any code. And with this is actually an app, so you could pass this thing, but we would not suggest you to serialize a long thing. This is running in one process kind of thing, right? So you could put a static thing somewhere and then share that way, or treat these pages as separate entities, really, because you could later jump into this URL from somewhere else. So think of it very similar to web, but a little bit differently. There is no session here, but this context is available for you to get the query parameters. Context is across the thing, yeah. It's available, the context is available within your page, but that gives you the query parameter, pretty much that's it. It's not the context like the web context, think of it that way. We can go over the questions towards the end. Let me run through this thing. Fancy animation there. So let's go to media. Silverlight and media are synonymous for us, right? So let's build a media app and see how we can show a video inside a Silverlight application within the phone. Let's build a small app. So Alok showed a fancy photo spinning app, right? And he cheated a little bit. He did write 2 lines of code. Did you guys notice? I was sitting there and I was saying, man, he's writing code. Let's not write any code. Oops, we have something, so that's okay. So I created an app called Media App. And here we do the same thing that he did with a photo. I'm going to do it with a video. But this time I'm not going to write even a single line of C# code. Let's see if we can do that. So first thing we want to do is we want to add a video. So I have a video here, some WMV file that I have, some monkeys running around kind of thing. So we want to put in a media element, right? So like so. And the source of the media element is going to be set as the movie.wmv file that we added. Very simple, right? Here is a file that I added to my solution. I threw in a media element, and then I have a movie.wmv. I just set it as source. And I'll do the same exact thing that he did, which is add a slider, right? And set the maximum value of this thing to 360. So we want to rotate it all across in a circle kind of thing, right? And I'm going to copy paste this, or maybe do it later a little bit. So for this, we need to do the projection. Same thing that's available for image control is available here as well. So we want to rotate it using the projection, the 2.5D, if you will, version of the graphics thing that we have. It's not full 3D. Silverlight is not full 3D yet. It is 2.5D, so we do projections to fake 3D right now. So media element dot projection, and we create a plain projection and give it x colon name for that equals projection 1. So all I did here is created a media element projection and a plain projection inside it and gave it a name, right? And let us use data binding right now without writing any code. Can we use data binding for us to go back and bind this property that we have with the slider that we have here, right? So the value of the slider is what we want to, when you drag, the value of it changes from 0 to 360. Whenever the value changes, I want to go back and update the rotation X or rotation Y property. That's the code that Alok wrote. So there is a different way to do that. So go here to value and apply data binding. So it is asking me, what do you want, what is the source of this, right? I'm going to say, okay, here is the projection 1 is what I want to modify. And what property of that would you want to modify? I want to modify the rotation Y property. That's about it, right? And we want to do the same thing with the vertical slider where we want to modify the flipping it in a other axis. So let me copy this and paste this and change the orientation to vertical. And since we already set up the properties of this particular slider to 360 degrees for the other one, this guy also will automatically get it. In the value portion of it, this automatically had the same thing as rotation Y. I'm just going to change the rotation X. That's it. So far, no C#, nothing, right? And let's try to run it. So here you can, as it is playing, you can flip this thing around, right? And as it is playing, you can just do the other way as well. The same thing that he did, I didn't use any code at all, but really played it in a smooth video and with no code using data binding. How about that? Come on, people. This is like a half-hearted applause, I don't care really kind of thing. Help me. If you are really cheering me, then I'll do more coding. If you're not, then we can just wrap it up and go to the next session. So what did we really see so far, right? So we built a media app, very simple media app, although a useless app, but really to prove a point that it is not really hard to build a media application on a phone anymore. You are not expected to learn all the codecs and intricacies of it unless you are like an IPL kind of thing where you want to do a bunch of custom stuff behind the scene. But really, we took like what, about a minute? Maybe because I'm explaining, it took me a couple of minutes for me to go through. But really, it is very easy to build these things. And two things that you want to notice is, first thing is, the same thing would run on the device as well. I'm not going to go through that. But we built the hardware decoding in the phone. So all the video streams that you're getting is decoded on the chip, on the hardware. So it gives you two things. One, speed. Secondary, battery life. If you do it in software, it is going to run on the CPU, which consumes much more power, right? So hardware decoding is done, both for images as well as for video. And one of the things that we also did is every phone will support these codecs, the VC1 or H.264. These things are all available for you. And how many of you know smooth streaming? Okay, only one. Smooth streaming is Microsoft's technology. We implemented this thing for telecasting Olympics way back. In SL2 time frame. What it does is when you go to a video site, it says, oh, tell me if you're on T1 line or a cable modem or dial-up, then I'll give you the appropriate bitrate encoded stream to you so that you can deal with it, because the bandwidth is stagnating. Whereas what we did is, we don't care really what speed are you on. We will figure that out. We will start out at the lowest bitrate and try to throttle that thing. Okay, you seem to consume all the samples that we're giving. Let me increase that dynamically. And it will keep on increasing until the point where you are stalling because you don't have enough bandwidth, or your CPU is not able to keep up with it. So we increase or decrease depending on what is going on your machine, and we request in the back end, we will switch the stream for you. So that's available through IIS and smooth streaming. You can go read about it, but it's very cool. So you can have really HD quality video on your phone, and I think this phone's about 720p or so, right? Pretty neat stuff. And we support DRM, Play Ready DRM. So for premium content like movies and stuff like that, through Netflix is one company in the US that is doing that. So you could do DRM basically to control who gets what content at what premium rate that they're going to charge you. They could provide you movies or sporting events or whatever other things that they want to control for. And I touched a little bit about that. XNA framework has a sound APIs. We had a pitch varying program that somebody built where your voice will become like if you breathe a helium balloon or something, your voice changes, right, the pitch. So you can do a bunch of effects like that, but all these things are available for you. Okay, one more fancy animation there. So we'll build a web browser, really. So a web browser control is available to you as a control, very similar to your text block or RTF control. Think of it like a CAN control that is available, and all you have to do is just point it to a website and it will load. Or if you have a content locally, it can load that as well. So we'll build a poor man's web browser. Like it is going to be really IE, and we'll try to load it. So let's create a project. Let's just call it web browser 1. And in a web browser, what do you have? A small text field at the top for us to put in the URL. So let's throw in a text box at the top. I think we need to probably increase the font size here. Make it 32. And we'll throw in a button. So when I click the button and just say go, then I want this thing to just go to that website, whatever that we put in, right? I'm not going to make this thing too pretty, but you get the idea. So here I want to add some code, right? A lot of code, in fact. What do we want to do? Get the value from the text box and pass it down to the web browser control that we dropped in, right? So we want to say web browser 1, that is my control name, dot navigate to some URI. And I need to build a new URI. And where is the URI? Text block, or oops, text box 1 dot text. That's it. Whatever is there, I want to take that and just point it. Okay? What's your favorite website? Oh, come on, you are in a Microsoft thing. Fine. I'm not going to ditch my competitor, but we are pretty open. Okay, there it is. So, few things that I want to point out, right? It's not really a great app that we built, but couple of things. First thing is, web browser is a full IE that is running. It's not a XHTML or any crippled version of thing, right? It is a full IE. Whatever is available on the phone through the home screen, when you click IE launches, it is the same control that we are giving you here. The second thing, when you ran this thing, right, it just launched. I didn't do any setting here on the emulator. The networking on the emulator is seamless, right? So my desktop is connected through wireless to something here, and the emulator, which is running within the desktop, uses whatever networking that's available, wireless, wired, I don't know, DSL, whatever you have, it doesn't matter. It will use the same network. If your desktop, you're able to browse something from the emulator, you're going to browse it to the same thing. So seamless networking, we took a lot of pains to do that. In the past, it was a painful exercise to set up, configure your emulator to go through, right? And the other thing also that you may notice is when I click this, the SIP automatically comes up, or software input panel as we call it. And you can customize this particular panel about how it should look based on the kind of input that you're requesting. So by default, you get a text entry. Maybe you want to ask people to enter a phone number. Maybe you want them to enter a name or address or a URL or a bunch of things like that, right? We give you about around 20 to 25 different configurations that are given so that you can customize the sort of thing to give you the kind of flexibility that you need. I'm not going to go through all of that. If you need something, hang around here, then we can go through this. There is one interesting app that we built, and this is an internal thing that we do to challenge each one. And this is a chess application that is built using Silverlight and a web browser control that we used to two sides of the chess game, right? One side is run by C# language. The other side we have a JavaScript. And JavaScript is fully supported, right? So one side is JavaScript, the other side is C#. And we can do one against the other and see who will win. Who do you think will win? C#? Okay, just a half-hearted lift. Okay, JavaScript. Come on, show some passion there. Some guys don't care really. They are not even lifting. Great, that's fine. You paid for the thing and you're going to see that. So it's going to take a little bit, like 20 seconds or so. So these things, we have an engine, game, this chess moves that we do, right? We go through these nodes, decision tree to figure out per second, and we stop it at that. JavaScript is able to keep up around 17,000, and C# is doing 150,000. So you can expect who is going to win. I'm thinking maybe C# will win, but we'll see. The other thing is, the interop between the two is very simple. You can notify from JavaScript into the C#, and from C# you can notify the other guy. Both the code is okay. Who said JavaScript here? Not your problem, man. It is our thing. We need to maybe make it run faster. But you get the idea, right? So you can do complex applications like that where you are interacting with both languages, if you will. If you have a lot of content already in web, you can bring that up within your app. Or if you are building a brand new app, you can also pull in some web services and whatnot and customize the UI, if you will, completely in C#. So you have a little bit flexibility of both. We don't want you to drop completely web and run here. It is possible sometimes. Sometimes we know that it is not possible. And that web browser control is specifically added for that. Right? Yeah, it uses the notification between the two. We can go through that a little bit later, but let me run through. I have a lot more content. I'll hang around here all day. We'll be here, so please bear with me. So a few things that we already touched upon. The web browser control that you have already supports the pinch, zoom, gestures, and double tap for zooming, all these things that are available. Just the way we rotated the video and photo, I don't know why, but you could do the same thing with the web browser. It is composable element within your visual tree, right? And you could obviously interact with JavaScript. So the next thing is device functionality. This is where the fun starts, really. So this device has a vibrate mode. I think all of you might have silenced your phones. And if you get SMS or something, it is going to vibrate. Or if you really don't care, you can just put it completely silent. Don't even tell me. So this one supports a vibration API. So you can ask within your app, let's say you get a notification about, hey, the game final, you are the winner or whatever, you want to shake and then produce a sound, right? You could write some code to do that. And it is pretty fun and simple. So let us write some code here for that. So this is going to be the most fanciest app that you're going to see today. We'll put a button. I just call it vibrate. So the vibration thing is available through a library that we give you under devices, Microsoft devices, right? And when I click the button, I want it to vibrate, right? So I'll just double click and write some code here. So the first thing we are going to do is we will using Microsoft.phone, right? That's where all the APIs are under. So we'll get that. So vibration is a oops. Exactly. I think it is making a lot more noise than what it is. Sorry. Good. Devices. There we go. There you go. Vibrate controller. That's what we want. So I'm going to say vibrate controller and ask for a default instance of that. Right? There is not many available, so we have one default one available. And we want to ask it to, hey, just start vibrating. What do you think the API is going to be? Come on, guess. Okay, good. So time span, let's say from, we don't want years, but we will just say from seconds. Let's say, 5 seconds, right? And this app is not going to run on the emulator for obvious reason. Our emulator cannot shake and make all kinds of funny things, so I'm just going to make it into a device. So can you zoom in on this? So I'm going to just run this thing and connecting to the device. So I'll switch the thing here. So that is our fancy app that we built. Not too exciting, but you're able to vibrate the phone with what, about 2 lines of code there. Do you want to do it again? This is what I do all day long. in my spare time. So what did we see so far, right? We saw a simple vibration demo where you try to build in very simple device capability using that. And similarly, the accelerometer is the same API that you could use to switch between, have it go rotate your phone and move some object within your app, right? You could do the same thing. Oops, sorry. So let's go down. I have a demo, but he's showing me we're out of time. So let me just switch through quickly. And I want to show you a photo chooser, right? So the other thing we have is called launchers and choosers. See, Microsoft, we are good at naming things, movers and shakers, launchers and choosers, some fancy names that we come up with. But bottom line, think about it like this. You have an app, you want to pick a photo, for example, or send an SMS, or send an email. These are all the sort of things that you want to invoke something. Like, think of it like equivalent to exec command type of thing. I want to fire and forget. Whatever happens, I don't care. I'm going to just fire that, let it run, and when it is done, just come back. I don't really care about the data that is coming back to me. Whereas the chooser is like an open file dialog or a save dialog kind of thing. We want to show that dialog, let him do something, get the data back and do something about it, right? So it two different things, but very similar properties there. So we'll build a simple picture chooser, if you will, right? So first thing I want to show you is where is this picture chooser really useful at? So here is our home screen. Oops. So we have pictures here. When you go there, you have some gallery and some favorites and whatnot, and you can double tap on it and do that. These are all the experiences that are available within the phone, right? So those are the pictures that we want to show, right? So let's write a simple application that will let us pick the photo. So for our photo app, all we are going to do is throw in a library. And these are all part of what we call phone tasks, right? All the choosers, launchers, these are all available within that library. So what do we need to show a photo? An image control. And we'll throw in a button, and when I click the button, I want to just pick an image, right? So I'll double click. So here, very similar to what we did earlier, we will use Microsoft.phone.tasks. And here, what we have to do is, the photo chooser task is the task that we want to invoke. We will new it up. And we will just show the dialog, whatever the dialog is. It's not really a dialog, but it's a task. We talked about a bunch of pages. Those pages are different tasks that are running. So it is going to show, but it is going to return a photo back to us. We need to read that back, right? So here is where it is a little bit code that we need to write. So we have a small snippet of code. It is pretty simple. You're going to override a method called onChooserReturn in your page. Wherever the chooser returns, right, it is going to call this override method. And whatever you want to do with the data that is returned to you, it is up to you. In my case, I'm going to just say, is it of type photo result? If it is a photo result, I'm going to expect a certain type of data back. In this case, a bitmap I'm going to get. And this is all simple Silverlight code. We have a stream, and that stream, I'm going to read it and create a bitmap and set the image as that, right? So I'm going to click Get Photo. It'll open up my sample media, whatever. So I'll pick this, I don't know, this goat. It came back, right? Very simple. But this is no fun. I don't know about you, but let us just change this to device and take a picture. How about that? Using camera. Any of you programmed camera before? Any of you? No? So for us, it is the same thing. It's a camera capture task, right? So we are going to just new up the camera capture task and cc.show. The beauty of these two is I'm not going to change any of the code below because the camera is going to return the same type of result, which is a photo result, right? So here we are going to change the device, and I'm going to launch it. And it says deploy succeeded. I'm not seeing this thing. Oh, there it goes. Okay. I can't see and take the photo at the same time. Hopefully this guy is able to show you. I'll click get photo. And it should launch the camera, this thing. So it's very awkward with this camera guy. But you can see the whatever the camera is showing, right? I'll just keep it still. And I'll click the button to take the button, and you just have to accept it, right? And that is the photo that we just took. So finally, great. Now that we are done, you're clapping. So one of the things that we saw are these launchers and choosers. Every time I get confused with movers and shakers here, but it's just me. So we touched upon a couple of them, right? We saw photo chooser task and a camera capture task. I don't know about you, but I've done programming before, for maybe 17 years or something, but never it has been so simple to go and do phone capabilities or any device capabilities. Forget about phone. Go do it on your PC and try it. Whatever we did now, within 1 minute, go ahead and try in your favorite platform, whatever it is, right? And really see how easy it is compared to what we just did here. We have a bunch of other things that are going to be coming up, and some of them are already available, some of them we are going to add. So there are a lot of depth that you can go into, and I can keep on talking for a long time, but the guy is going to kick me out. So we barely touched upon few things, and I showed you, hand-waved some of the things that you can do, right? But really, at the end of the day, you as a developer are given this platform where you can go and exploit every single capability that this phone has, right? And it is available to you today, and start building applications. Whether it is XNA 3D, for the first time we built DirectX stack on the phone. In the past, on our competing platforms, it uses OpenGL. And Microsoft is pretty big on graphics with DirectX, right? So DirectX is coming to the phone, and almost all the DirectX APIs are exposed through XNA. So all the tank demo that you saw and 50 tanks that we have uses these render targets and things like that. Bunch of powerful APIs are available for you. And if you have a game that uses DirectX already, very simple to port back here. They are almost close to XNA API. And with that, I'm done. So we'll take any questions that you have. And if you have a question and we are kicked out of here, we will hang around the Microsoft booth. Please come there and I'll answer more. But right now, I'll take questions.
Okay, for hardware acceleration, you would expect that the hardware support should be there. That's also be as hardware decode. So
it's a required hardware on Windows Phone 7. You cannot call it a Windows Phone 7 if it doesn't have a GPU, CPU, hardware decode in it. It is given. You don't have to worry about it. And none of the things that I did so far, I didn't do much as a programmer, but I got the benefit of the built-in platform. By default, it gives you that. This is an engineering device by Asus, but these are not available outside yet. Yeah, this is, imagine doing beta software with beta hardware or alpha hardware. That's what we're going through right now. But we are expecting devices to show up later during the year.
Can you also explain more about the launchers and the chipsets? Because there's a little confusion about a few things. You mentioned something about launcher starting up an app and so on. So,
Two apps, right? You launch an app really. If you want to send an email, you're launching your email program, right? And you come back through the back stack, through the back button. Whereas a chooser, I'm still within my app. Think of it like you built a separate page within your application, but that page, Microsoft built it. And you can slide it in. And you can expect data back and incorporate the data. Like in our case, we took a photo, that the task returned it back to us, and we copied the data back into our application. Downloading of JavaScript is dangerous and letting it run some random thing, but that you can tweak it as an IE. If you point it to some source, it will download, and we can show you. But those things, there are some restrictions there. I'm not going to go too deep into that right now. Which one? No. You could build the same thing. Any other questions? I can't hear, sorry. Can you run a web server? I don't know why, but you could write a program that way. But we don't support sockets today, so unless
You can connect back to the HTML. You cannot open a socket to accept incoming. Though even if I think hard, I don't know why you would want to run a web server on a mobile device.
you could make a web request and get data through whatever means that you want. HTTP, web request, or there is a API called web client that you could use, asynchronously get the data and notify you when the download completes. And you could, the typical programming type. Reverse process is just a HTTP post. You create a channel to a live service, and you do a HTTP post, and that service is going to push it back to you. So it is no different than you filling out a form and clicking submit. It is very similar to that. Push notifications are very simple to post. You create a channel, move on. No, from your phone you could write, like I could put a button and say send message blah, and this message I'm going to connect to the live service, and that live service knows about your phone. And if I know your channel, then I can send this notification to that guy over there, and it will batch up everything, and Microsoft will do a best case, the best effort in delivering that message to you. There is no guaranteed delivery, but we will do the best. Most of the time it is going to get to you, but in the event that it doesn't come to you, Microsoft doesn't guarantee that. So don't use that to say that your ICACI transaction is complete. That is not what it is meant for. But it is meant for saying, hey, the score is something, or your so-and-so, small notifications. But if you want a guaranteed delivery, it's not. WCF is there. Yep. No, you could use WCF. WCF is a flavor of communication that you can use. Under WCF, you can use different ways of talking. Or you can use just plain vanilla web calls as well. WCF is supported in the CLR that Alok builds.